E sì, state ascoltando Radio Italia 1 Adelaide, qui Antonio Dottore con programma di attualità e approfondimento. Abbiamo in onda, nello studio il prossimo ospite di oggi, Preston Natale, e stiamo andando in onda anche su Facebook Live attraverso il profilo della radio. Dunque, grazie. Thank you, Preston, for having come into the studio of Radio Italia 1 Adelaide. To talk about, amongst other things, the experience you've just had.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me today.
Cool. So let's think. I've said we're having two students who have had some interesting, I believe, international experiences. Virginia, who spent a semester in Australia while studying for her masters in Italy, and you've done kind of you've moved from Australia elsewhere. So tell us about your international experience.
Yes, so I'm studying at Flinders University at the moment, and I'm doing a double degree, a Bachelor of International Relations, Political Science and Criminology. And then earlier in the year, I had the opportunity to intern over in Washington DC, interning in the office of Congressman Steve Cohen, who represents the 9th District in Tennessee, which makes up the majority of Memphis city.
Tennessee, Memphis.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Did you manage to go to Memphis and visit sacred places of the Orvis history?
Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get there. However, there was the blues and rock and roll music playing through the office every day. So it was a very cool experience, and I feel like even though I haven't been there, I've got a part of Memphis in me.
Okay, I can just imagine that. So it must be a strong part of the culture.
Yeah, for sure. I think even all the way over in Washington, most of the staffers in the office were from Memphis or from Tennessee. So to be able to have not only that American experience, but that real experience from deep in the South was a very cool time.
Yeah. Okay, so you said you're studying international relations and political science at Flinders, and you did this internship in the office of Representative Cohen. How long were you there?
I was there for 2 months, so across January and February.
January and February, so that would have been when the current president was installed.
Yes, so it was quite a crazy time to be there. When I got there, my first couple of weeks was during the end of the Biden administration, and then was there for the inauguration and then the handover into the Trump presidency. So a very chaotic but enjoyable time and experience to be there.
Okay, so and that's it would have been. It would have been interesting in terms of you observing all of this and observing the preparations, probably not directly involving, or did it involve the work for the office?
Yeah, no, we had a lot of work to do with the inauguration. So
Okay.
how it works is in the lead up, each of the congressional officers gets given a certain amount of inauguration tickets to give to their constituents. So a lot of our jobs over the first couple of weeks was figuring out who got those tickets, and then just the administration behind that. Unfortunately, a lot of that work and effort went to no avail because the weekend before, the inauguration got moved inside into the Capitol purely for VIPs, so the tickets were simply just cool mementos.
Okay. And then the president started issuing executive orders almost immediately.
Yes.
So that might have certainly brought a lot of interest and analysis.
Yeah, 100%. I think the most interesting thing I found being over there was that I was right in the heart of it, and it really felt that way. Like, I think over here in Australia, sometimes we're almost shielded from American politics, where we'll see the headlines, see what's going on, and then that's kind of it. I was in the heart of it, so Trump would make another announcement, sign another EO, you'd see the news flash up on the telly, and then 2 minutes later, fielding calls from concerned constituents. So you're always just in the thick of it and really feeling the impact from people on the ground as well.
Okay, so that's an interesting aspect of what was going on. So how big is the office then?
So the office was about a staff team of about 10,
Yeah.
with 3 interns there as well. So a small space, but a very hard, dedicated working team that I had a great joy getting to work alongside.
Okay, that's I'm saying small in terms of, it's not really small, but with a team of 10 you'd get to be exposed to a lot, really a lot, and not miss out pretty much on anything unless you wanted to keep people away.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of great experiences. I was very fortunate to have, I think, a real standout moment was I got to accompany the congressman and the comms director to a live TV interview that the congressman was doing in the Capitol building. So getting to kind of see the behind the scenes of how that worked, and then doing live research kind of on the fly for the congressman as well. It was a great opportunity. It was very stressful.
Yes.
And this was at like 7 in the morning, so then I still had a whole day of work to do after that. But it was an incredible opportunity that really showed kind of the behind the scenes and the inner workings of being Congress.
Yeah. Okay, and so I noticed I'm starting every sentence with okay, just because it's all very interesting material that you're including. So you would have to do research in real time for issues that came up. How might that happen? Tell us. Okay, is there a day in the life of an intern or a normal or a staffer in the congressman's office?
Yeah. So day in the life, and I guess this was one of the highlights of my experience, that every day was different.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was part of the political time that I was there for, with so much going on. I kind of kept expecting things to get into a normal rhythm, and it just didn't happen. Every day kind of seemed to be something new. Regular day in the life will look like a fair bit of research about just trying to keep up with what's going on, because kind of us as interns are always kind of manning the phones. We're talking to a lot of concerned constituents about what's happening, what the newest executive order might mean for them. So it's really important that we're kind of always on our toes and up to date as much as possible with what's going on. So even if the office doesn't have any official information, we can give some clear, hopeful advice to constituents who are not quite sure what's going on.
Now, Steve Cohen is a representative from the Democratic Party.
Correct, yeah.
And do you think, does that have an impact on what sort of works or things were going on in an office compared to, say, someone who's from the Republican Party?
Yeah, 100%. I think it was especially noticeable kind of before the inauguration and after, seeing the difference in the office, both in kind of just general atmosphere about the political environment, but also in terms of the work we were doing. I think a lot of the work we were doing the last 5 to 6 weeks of my time there after the inauguration was everything was in response. Nothing was on the front foot because President Trump was who was on the front foot. So we were always kind of trying to respond and keep up to date with what was happening and do the best for the people of Memphis from there.
Yes, and so you said responding and trying to help people understand what the impact of the executive orders had on them. How deep does it go? Because I mean, the United States is on a completely different scale from Australia, and give us an impression. What would be the size of the electorate?
There would be, Memphis obviously quite being a large city. I remember looking up, is smaller than Adelaide, so I think it was at about 800,000 population-wise. Don't quote me on it. But I certainly remember noticing that it was smaller than Adelaide and actually being surprised by that.
Yeah, but there's still
a lot of people.
Yeah. Where in Adelaide there's several federal seats where you have
course.
only the one. So you're representing a lot of people and maybe a different, quite a wide variety of interests.
Yeah, a very wide variety. And I think that was also very interesting about my time there is Congressman Cohen, he's the only Democrat in all of Tennessee. So
I'd assumed he was a Republican when I heard Tennessee. Yes. Okay.
So he's the only Democrat in all of Tennessee. So every other House member, Senate, and then Governor as well was all Republican. So it was a very interesting experience, kind of seeing what that looked like. So we'd often talk to a lot of people from outside the districts, but from elsewhere in Tennessee, who felt like they didn't have any proper representation in government, who would then kind of fall onto us. So he's very aware that he's kind of representing not just his electorate, but a lot of people within the state as well who feel like they're his only representation.
Yes. And so you would have individuals, like households, have interests. What about business? Did you get an impression for how businesses were responding or reacting to the early days of the Trump administration?
Yeah, I think it was quite difficult just because of the time of it. Like, it was different every day. So there was a lot of, I didn't personally have a lot much to do with it, but I know there was a lot of people in other offices who were really struggling in terms of a lot of the economic side of it, where businesses were coming in trying to speak to the representatives to get some insight as to best path forward. And a lot of the times, even the representatives didn't have a great idea about what was going to be happening. So just trying to find stability in the turmoil, I think, was a running theme for myself and the other interns from Flinders that were over there as well.
Okay, and so there were others. So that brings up another question I was going to ask you. How does this thing work? What is this internship? If you said there were others from Flinders, I guess it's a regular program?
Yeah, so the internship's been running for nearly 25 years now. So the program was founded by the great Don DeBatz, who unfortunately passed away last year. Flinders, as students, we're very lucky. This is the only program of its kind in Australia, so we're very privileged to be able to have access to this. And essentially, we're set up through an organisation both here in Australia and in America who kind of just get a foot in the door for us and then place us in a office overseas. So it was an interesting time in the lead up to the internship. We don't get a choice in our office, we just get placed and that's where we go. I was very grateful for where I was placed, but a nervous time at the beginning, but it turned out all for the best.
Well, interesting. I think you said it's been going for 25 years, but I remember I was a student at Flinders well before 25 years ago, and I remember something similar existing. We're talking about the early mid-80s,
Well,
so maybe it's close to 50 years
Amazing.
as we go. And it's amazing how old I am now that I think about that. But yes, so Don DeBatz was, at the time when I was a student there, he was in what was called American Studies, not within politics, but its own little area. And it was a very interesting, very important. So, you said you were part of this process of sending several Flinders students to the Congress.
Yes.
You don't choose where you go, you get allocated to an office, and it's a 2-month. You mentioned January, February. That would have been winter. I know Washington can be pretty cold.
Oh, very cold.
I've been in Boston during winter. So was that the case for you this year?
Yes, freezing is the short answer for that. It was cold like I'd never quite experienced before. Our first week of our internship got delayed because of a snowstorm, or effectively snowed in. I enjoyed that. I've only ever seen snow once before, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it did certainly take time to get used to the different weather. I know in my first couple of weeks, I made the mistake of leaving the house with my hair still slightly wet. By the time I'd walked from my apartment to the office, my hair was rock solid frozen. So I didn't make that mistake again, that's for sure.
Yes. Okay, let's have a short break now for some messages from our sponsors. Then we'll come back to speak to Preston Natale here on Radio Italia. Now, you were saying just a couple of minutes ago that you helped set up the system. And you got some very cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that like getting to? You mentioned you had wet hair only one day.
Mm-hmm.
But so how far were you? What was it like living in the city of Washington?
It was incredible. I think the whole time I was very aware of how cool the place that I was, and the novelty never wore off. Like I think every day on my way to work I was walking past the Supreme Court, walking past the Capitol building, and we were just, I don't know, all 5 of us interns that were over there, we were very aware of the importance of what we were doing, and also just what an incredible opportunity it was, and also just to live in Washington DC. It was a beautiful city. I loved every moment there. Outside of the political centre of it, if you branch out a bit further, it had similar vibes of Adelaide to it. Very small in terms of kind of its cafe type scene, but just a real beautiful place to be able to live for a couple of months.
Yeah, for a couple of months. I visited a couple of times for shorter periods for the annual meetings of the IMF and the World Bank, and I agree, it seemed like a nice place. It could be a nice place to live. Like Adelaide, maybe like Canberra too, being specifically a capital city, and probably smaller than the major cities. And in fact, at one stage, they were going to have some major congress and realised they couldn't because there weren't enough hotels, and there was a big influx of hotels being built for this city. You went to Washington, I guess during our summer break, had the cold weather there, came back to studying international relations and politics. When have you got some ideas of where you might take this afterwards?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. So obviously the degree I'm doing, it's not as straightforward as some other degrees. It's not like a teaching degree that you do become a teacher. So I've got a lot of paths that I could take it down. I've always felt a real passion to want to go into the humanitarian aid space and work in an NGO space. So that's still where I want to go. What I don't know is what that specifically looks like yet, but what I've always tried to think about is just trying to keep going and putting one foot in front of the other. And this internship was just that big step in that next process, and I keep walking down the path to hopefully end up in that space over the next couple of years.
And now the internship is organised by the Jeff Bleich Centre
Yes,
for
that's correct.
Technologies and Democracy,
Yes.
which is, I'm not sure if I've got the exact title of the centre. My Rodrigo Plano might have a go at me for that. But Rodrigo Plano is another example of Italianness, actually, who's having a major impact in Adelaide. He's been here, it might be 10 years or so now, I'm not sure. But he's certainly come up the ranks very quickly at Flinders University. Very energetic person, and doing some very interesting work via the Jeff Bleich Centre. Is that something that you interact with? Does it connect with your degree, with your studies?
Yeah, so the Jeff Bleich Centre have had a lot to do with the internship specifically, so they've been incredible at not only setting us up and kind of helping us prepare for the internship, both before, so we had a fair few information sessions and kind of things to know before we went. And then they've also been great at, since we've got back, is staying connected with them, being involved, and also the amount of opportunities that they've opened up from this internship has been incredible. So just a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to attend an event at Flinders University where I met the Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Miles, who was there, who was on site, as well as Louise Miller-Frost, member for Boothby, and a few other MPs. So the Jeff Bleich Centre have just been incredible at keeping those connections and helping us branch out into some incredible opportunities since we've been home.
Yes, and I just keep on talking. I realise I'm getting to the end of the programme. Now, Natale. Now let's explore that a bit.
Yeah.
When I saw that name on the LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn post, there's got to be an Italian connection. And we know of Richard Di Natale, who was the leader of the Democrats, the Greens, up to a few years ago. Is it an Italian name? What's the Italianness here?
Yes, very Italian. So the Italian name comes from my father's side. So my grandfather, Vito Natale, I reckon he's listening now. Hi, Granddad, if you are. Him and his family came over from Italy when he was a child. So they grew up in a small village called San Fele. Yeah, so about 2 hours out of Napoli. So yeah, they came over to Australia in the 50s. And yeah, that's that Italian heritage side of my last name.
Okay, have you been there? Have you visited?
I have. I've been lucky enough to head over to Italy twice. So I've been to Rome, Florence, Venice, and Napoli as well.
Well, actually, there's some interesting NGOs based in Rome.
Yes.
Yes.
It would be an incredible place to work maybe one day.
Yes, that just occurred to me. At least there's the FAO at least, and plenty of other opportunities. Okay, now we're pretty much over the limit. Is there some music or singer or songs that we might want to, other than being part of your Italian upbringing? Now, hang on, you mentioned a nonna. Did you mention a nonna?
So my nonna, yeah, Nana Natale.
Yes, okay. Where is she from? Also from somewhere?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So that they met in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And what music would they have been?
Or on the spot, I'm not sure of any specifics, but I know just kind of growing up on that Italian side of the family, always just rich in music and food and culture, which is something I've been very lucky to grow up with.
Yeah, okay, well maybe let's go for a weird, something that most people associate with Italians and Italian music, because I saw it come up, I showed it to my mum earlier today on YouTube. So let's put Domenico Modugno with Volare. That'd be a good way to close out today's program. So again, thank you, Preston, for having come into the studio. Congratulations for the internship. It sounds like you really used it well, and it's and good luck for the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on today.